Hey, I'm Zac Flynn from Eminence Ensemble, and you're watching For Bass Players Only.
Hi, everyone. John Liebman here. You're watching the number one site for learning bass online, ForBassPlayersOnly.com, where we take the frustration out of learning bass so you can build confidence, have fun, and just enjoy making music. It's not for everyone. It's ForBassPlayersOnly.com. We have a special interview this week, all the way from Colorado, from Eminence Ensemble, Zac Flynn. How you doing, Zac?
I'm great, John. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you. I've been looking forward to this interview for quite some time. You were born in Breckenridge, Colorado, right?
I was, born and raised in Summit County.
Because I have fond memories of Breckenridge and Steamboat and a few other places. And as I understand it, you didn't really find your true passion for music until you were in high school. Is that about right?
Yeah, middle school, high school. I actually grew up on Peak 7 in Breckenridge, and my next door neighbor, who is now my guitar player for Eminence Ensemble, he got a guitar for his 13th birthday, and I was like, I want a bass. And it just kind of called out to me from then. Started playing in the jazz band in high school. And my band teacher told me if I wanted to be in jazz band, I had to be in orchestra and to learn upright bass.
Okay, well, I want to get to that, but slow down a minute. I want to back you up just a little bit. Was it really that easy just because your friend, your neighbor got a guitar? Is that all it took to draw you to the bass? Because a lot of people, go kind of reluctantly to the bass. They want to play a guitar, but there's plenty of guitar players in the band. That was my story. You can play guitar and not be in the band, or you can play bass and be in the band. So
yeah, and I've heard that story.
What exactly was your story?
The bass called to me. I mean, that was my first instrument. It was what I fell in love with first. And yeah, like I said, my neighbor was a guitar player. I didn't want to be a guitar player too.
Wow. Okay. So were you already kind of picking out bass lines on the radio or records or CDs or whatever you were listening to at the time? Or was it once you started playing the bass that you got, I assume at some point you got attuned to that?
I mean, to be honest, I think I just liked the sound of the bass first. I wasn't, picking out bass lines at that point, but I liked the sound of the bass more. So that's what drew me to it.
Well, okay. So once you got more and more into it, you must have had some bass influences or maybe some bass heroes. Who were you listening to? Who got your attention? Which bass players?
So in the beginning, I was listening to a lot of like Green Day and Blink-182 and that kind of stuff. Once I got into high school, I had a really great band teacher, and she turned me on to like Jocko, who's
Oh, that's a cool
probably
teacher.
my biggest. Yeah, Ray Brown, who's one of my big influences. Rufus Reed, guys like that. Once I started entering into the jazz realm, all sorts of different players from that scene. And it was about that time I started playing, more rock music, leaning into jam band, the jam scene. That's kind of where I am now. I guess I didn't really fall into that really until college, but I started listening to bands like Humphreys McGee, Sound Tribe, Sector 9, the Disco Biscuits, things like that in high school.
Well, no, you mentioned you also studied classical double bass. So
Yeah.
can I assume you went through the Simandl method and maybe played in the orchestra? Was that kind of
I
your
did.
world?
Yeah. So like I said, my band teacher made me pick up upright to join the jazz band, which is what I wanted to do. I had to be in the orchestra. And that was a good move. I ended up getting a scholarship to go to CU for classical upright bass.
Colorado University.
University of Colorado at Boulder.
University of Colorado. Okay.
Yep. Where I studied under Paul Erhard, Dr. Paul Erhard, who's under the tutelage of Homer Mensch, who's a pretty famous
That name I know.
upright bassist. Yeah. And yeah, through that world, I ended up graduating with a bachelor's in classical music performance and double bass performance.
Okay.
So
we
a lot of Bottesini and yeah, you know,
Bottini and
everything else.
Petersdorf. Did you ever play the Von Hall concerto?
I didn't, but I had enough students in my studio play it that I could probably sing it back.
But
Yeah.
the solo tuning always kind of threw me. Like, what key is it in? Is it in D or is it in E? I mean, make up your mind. What is, you know?
Yeah. And to be honest, I still have solo strings on my upright. I play mostly jazz gigs on upright now, but I just like the tension on them. So I
Or lack
play.
thereof. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And you get a little more thump out of it.
When you were in the jazz band, and your teacher said you have to play upright. Were you playing exclusively upright, or did you get to play electric in the jazz band also?
Both. Yeah. So I've always done both. I had a Fender P bass at that time, and then going into college, I got a Fender jazz bass, which I played for the last 15 years. And I just, as of about a month ago, got a brand new NS Design CR6. So I stepped up to the 6 strings, and it is amazing. I love it.
I definitely want to get to that. I want to hear about your equipment, your gear, NS Design. Let's talk first, though, about the band, about Eminence Ensemble. First of all, I think it's really cool that you're in a band with a bunch of guys that you've known like forever, right? You all grew up together.
Yeah, 4 of us.
Wow. But I came across a quote that I wanted to share with you and with the audience. This is attributed to you having said, Eminence Ensemble is known for explosive performances, genre blending songwriting, and jaw-dropping production. We strive to create a diverse and eclectic repertoire, one that allows us to bring a completely different performance to the stage every time we play. Would you care to comment or elaborate on that? Does that sound like something you might have said?
Yeah. It also sounds like it might have come from our bio. So I don't know if I was paraphrasing our bio, but it is. Yeah.
What is the band all about?
So I would say, broad term, we're a jam band, but we're all classically trained musicians.
I didn't realize
we come from, different backgrounds, jazz, a lot of different things. When I was in college, I studied. Well, I didn't study, but I played in a band with these 2 drummers from Ghana, who were there for the West African ensemble at CU. But I ended up, cutting my teeth gigging with them for 3 or 4 years, playing West African high life.
You had a West African ensemble in the music
school?
Yeah,
we did, and it was extremely influential to me. Through that, I got to do a master class with Victor Wooten in college, and we got to play on stage. He was our special guest for the West African High Life Ensemble. Wow. So I had a pretty cool background with the West African music. So we have rock backgrounds, jazz backgrounds, funk. So the 4 of us together, a lot of our songs are rock, but we do a lot of soul stuff. We do a lot of jazz influence stuff. And in my mind, jam music is just jazz built on 1/4/5 instead of 2/5/1. There's a lot of similarities, and it's a lot of the same mindset. But
interesting perspective. Another thing that got my attention, you guys, you built up quite a following, and what stands out to me is your determination, because I remember you brought back a lot of memories when I was reading up about you and the band. I remember blowing out a transmission. I remember getting locked out of the place we were supposed to stay and sleeping in the car and running into all kinds of problems on the road. And I know you guys have had your challenges. So what kept you going? Because you ran into a lot. I just mentioned a couple examples there.
Yeah. And, to be honest, I think about that a lot. And it's my family. It's my brothers. I've known Justin, like I said, was my neighbor growing up. Our parents still live next to each other.
Wow.
And then Tanner, our drummer, and Nick, our singer and percussion player, I went to high school with. And then we all went to CU together, and we started the band. We started Eminence in Boulder. So that was 10, 12 years ago now we started. And it was just kind of, what we wanted to do at that point. We never looked back. So we've definitely, there's still always going to be something that comes up, but At some point I feel like it's kind of, what I was meant to do, and that's why, what we're here for.
Wow. So what's happening with the band now?
We are currently getting ready to go record our third full-length album. We just dropped 2 singles a couple months ago, and we did a 5-week run through the Midwest and the Northeast. And we have 2 more singles that are about to come out, hopefully in the next month. We got a really special guest, Chris Myers from Humphreys McGee, playing drums on one of the tracks, which is cool. We've got to know those guys pretty well. But yeah, we're right now doing demos for the third album. Gonna hopefully get it recorded by the fall and get back on the road to do another big tour with it.
How much can you share about the new forthcoming album?
So a lot of the songs we've been sitting on, probably 80% of them we wrote during COVID. When everything, fell apart, we stopped gigging. Everybody was writing a lot, and we have a shared Google Drive of just ideas that we kind of dump things into, and we've been going through them, and we picked out a bunch of tunes that we are really attached to. That I'm really proud of some of the songwriting that came out of the pandemic with us. So
how would you say the new record compares to the previous ones?
It's well, first I'll say it's a different lineup. During COVID, we lost one of our guitar players and our keyboard player at the time. No bad blood. They just wanted to go somewhere else in life. And who we ended up bringing on, Dylan Glide on guitar and Will Snyder on keyboards, are both just amazing players, songwriters. They really fit the vibe. And Dylan happens to be a commercial audio engineer by trade, so he's mixing everything.
That's a handy band member to have, huh?
Very handy to have, yeah. And they're both very talented guys. But I think the songwriting with them, the lyrics, everything is just a whole new beast. I really feel like everything's kind of settled into where it's supposed to be at this point.
Do you have a title, or at least a working title for the new record?
We don't. We haven't got there yet.
How about a target release date?
We're looking for September. We'll see. That might be ambitious, but we're trying to get back on the road to do another big tour with it in the fall. So we might be going to the West Coast in the end of the summer, going into September. So we'll see. But things are kind of up in the air still. It's a whole new industry.
Yeah, whole new everything.
Yep.
Let's get back to your basses and your gear. You mentioned NS Design. Why don't we start there? I want to hear what you're playing, your basses, your gear, and all that stuff.
Yeah. So my relationship with NS Design started probably 4 or 5 years ago at this point. Reached out and said I loved the gear, and
you reached out to them?
I did. Yep.
Okay.
I ended up getting an endorsement deal with them, and I've been in love with them since. They built me a custom 5-string upright, electric upright.
I love those, the NS Design uprights.
Yeah, it's a CR5, and I've been really trying to kind of dive into that in a new perspective, taking upright into rock, and taking bowed upright into rock and into jam music. And I'm kind of I'm trying to lean into, that's my shtick. It's a giant stick, but that's my shtick also. And trying to bring the bowed upright into, effects, playing with an octaver, playing with chorus, things like that. And I'm coming out with some really cool things that I love with it.
But I'm just curious. I always have to ask the question, and probably nobody cares, but do you play French bow or German bow?
German.
All right.
I played French in high school, and then my teacher in college was from the German lineage. So from German from there out.
Because a lot of people say French is easier. I'm not comfortable with it. When I pick up a French bow, I hold it like a German bow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I can't do anything with a French bow, to be honest.
When you mentioned six string earlier, it sounded like that was something kind of new for you. And then you mentioned five string. Have you been normally? You also mentioned a jazz bass and a P bass. So are you more, mostly a four string, five string, six string? What do you have a preference or a usual?
At this point, I'm only on the six string. For the last 15 years, I played a five string Fender Jazz, and my first bass was a four string P bass. But
So
yeah, I
which is
just
the six string? Because you mentioned a five string upright. Is the six string also an upright?
six string Radius NS bass guitar. So headless, super modern sound. It's got a pickup, piezo pickup in the bridge,
Yeah.
and you can blend between the magnets and the piezo and get all sorts of cool tones. All the way towards the piezo, up high, it sounds like an acoustic guitar almost. It's great with some nice reverb and chorus. It's I've been coming up with some cool tones. But yeah, I just got it.
What do you play through? What kind of amp?
So I'm on Aguilar's roster, and I've got a 410 and a 115 with the AG 750. So full stack with the 750 head, which is great.
Any effects? You sound like an effects kind of guy.
Yeah, I really only use octave, chorus, and a filter, and all three of those I'm using Aguilar right now. I have a SansAmp little driver that I use as a drive pedal when I need it.
Tech 21.
Yep, exactly. I just used that. We just did a 70s set in Austin, and we played Roundabout by Yes. And I just got the best Roundabout Chris Squire tone with it. But yeah, that's about it for effects. I use a little bit of reverb. I love reverb with the bow. Gives it just a little more vibe. But,
what kind of strings do you play?
Labella.
Oh,
yeah, and I've been steel my whole life, steel, and with the six string, I'm thinking about going to tape wounds. I've never played them. I've never had them, but I love how they sound on the six string, especially up high. So I think I'm going to lean into that. But I have labellas on my acoustic upright. I have labellas on my electric upright and my six string right now. So
are you a labella artist?
No, I just love their strings.
I do too.
Yeah.
For Bass Players Only, as you know, is a bass instruction site, and we have more and more people coming to our site every day to learn how to play bass. And most of them are a little bit older than your typical student, 50s, 60s, 70s. They're not career bound. They just want to play. They've always wanted to. Now they have some time. They love the classic rock from the 60s and 70s, the soul music, a little R&B. In that context, what advice can you impart to our students here? What do you think is important for someone to know who wants to learn to play bass?
Yeah, just play from your heart. I mean, if you're not in it for that, then what else is there,
Money and girls and
yeah. Well, there's no guarantee there, but if you love it, do it. And that's what's kept me going since the beginning, and will keep me going, until the end, I think. So
well, how about something specific to regarding bass technique or listening or playing with other people or locking in with the drummer, something other. The playing from the heart should be obvious. Maybe sometimes it isn't, but when you get down to it, how should I practice? What should I practice? How do I, that kind of thing. And anywhere at all, if you can jump in there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge advocate. All my students, I tell to, work on music that you love. So if you're into the, classic rock songs, really dive into it. Learn about who the bass player was. Learn about what kind of bass they use, how they got their tone, and really, don't be afraid to spend a week on just a song, on just really finding, really locking in with how they wrote their part. And developing your own sound really comes from just merging all of these other transcriptions that you've made in, on your own. And you don't even need to be transcribing. I'm not even saying writing it down, but playing along with your favorite recordings, and just do it every day. 10 minutes every day is going to go a lot further than 50 minutes once a week. And I think a lot of it is just listening, with intention. A lot of people listen to music and just, it's there for the, ambiance or the vibe, but really taking time to listen, where is the drummer really putting the pocket? Where is the harmony? What's really happening, and listening with that intention and with that specific ear. And I think that, that goes further than, I could talk all day about technique, but at the end of the day, it's the ear that really matters. And
Technique
spending time
is,
to develop your ear is, I think, the most important.
the technique is a means to an end. It's about making music, not playing, 80 bazillion 16th notes in a minute.
Yeah, 100%.
I was not, I did it. I'm talking about when I was in my 20s, and I was a maniac. I was down in Miami doing like between 400 and 500 gigs a year. And
Wow.
I was the house bassist at the theater on Miami Beach. Then I'd go straight to Little Havana, play at the Copacabana 4 nights a week. And
Wow.
those shows didn't start till like 1:30 in the morning. I used to get
Yeah.
home at 4, But what I'm getting at is I did it because I loved it and I wanted to do it, but I felt like I needed to be able to play all the styles, anything I could get called for. I got called to do the national tour of Into the Woods with Cleo
Wow.
Lane, and Stephen Sondheim was coming to the rehearsals. And I remember I was practicing my bowings as if I was going to have a solo in each style. And we
Yeah.
talked about Samandal earlier and belay and all that. So I get to the rehearsal. Okay. The conductor says, okay. And I'll go ahead. I look at the part. I'm going, dum, dum,
Yep.
dum.
Classic. Yeah.
There was more to it than that, but you just brought back up a happy memory when you're talking about it. But if you're doing it not because you feel like you want to get called and you want to get called back, no, you just want to play and have fun and play with your friends, I think you hit it right on the head. So I think that was very good advice you imparted. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. I mean it.
What would you be if you were not a bass player? Something outside of music.
Well, I'm also a software engineer. During COVID, I, had no income, and I ended up going to a boot camp, like a coding boot camp through all of 2021. And I got pretty much straight out of the gate, through my contacts in music, I landed a job at a company called Lively. And we're connecting fans and creators for music lessons, live streaming, hangs, live performances, things of that nature. So I'm actually doing software engineering in the daytime now, and from the van, which is pretty cool. I can work remotely. So
Wow.
working on my laptop wherever I am now, which has been, great, honestly.
Yeah, I remember in the early days of running an online business, I had looked at code. It scared me to death. And I guess, once you get into it, things make sense and they fit together. But now there are also a lot of plugins and a lot of things that do away with the need for getting in there. But we definitely still need people like you.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many, crossovers between music and coding. It's just abstract language. And I think in a lot of ways, musical minds and the coding mind are kind of the same thing.
You look at the coding like art? Or is that a stretch?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's 100 ways to complete any task, really. So in a lot of ways, I'm shadowing my CTO, and I'm learning his style of coding. There's just like in music, just like on the fretboard, there's 15 ways to play anything, it's the same kind of vibe with coding. So you're developing your own style, and a lot, I do think it's like art. Yeah.
Congratulations on all the success and the drive and the ambition and the determination. A lot of people would have given up had they encountered some of the obstacles that were thrown in front of you. So I commend you and the fellas for sticking with it. Congratulations on the forthcoming new album. We will all watch for that. And let me know when it's up and when you're touring, and we will share it to all these nice people here. So Zac Flynn, thank you very much. The band is Eminence Ensemble, based in Colorado. Watch for the third album coming September-ish or somewhere around there of 2022. Thank you, Zac. Good luck to you, and keep it going.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, John. Great to talk.
Thank you very much. Our special guest, Zac Flynn of Eminence Ensemble. I'm John Liebman. You're watching the #1 site for learning bass online, ForBassPlayersOnly.com, where I've taken the frustration out of learning bass so you can build confidence, have fun, and just enjoy playing music. Remember, it's not for everyone. It's ForBassPlayersOnly.com. We'll see you all next week. Thanks.